faith. Faith that enabled him. Let me just list it for you. The kind of faith that caused him to kill a young lion with his bare hands. To destroy 30 Philistines in Ashkelon. And right now in the news I thought I saw the mention about Ashkelon. He slayed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. And he carried away the gates of Gaza. Right now Gaza is in the news. Carried away the gates when he was taken prisoner. Got up and took the gates of Gaza. Carried it away. And then finally, he pulled down the temple of Dagon and slay more Philistines in his death than he did in his life. And so Paul listed in Samson as a man of faith. Can you see the picture that I'm painting?
Yes, amen.
That all of these individuals so far, they've been flawed. We would say that they were massive flaws. Samson was a womanizer. The woman that we're talking about, he didn't marry them. And even the world will call the name. What's her name? Lyittle. I think, it's probably telling our age a little bit. But I remember growing up in England, Tom Jones wrote a song, "Oh, Delilah." Does anybody remember it? Yeah, real old still. I'm getting out of here. Like Delilah could not escape her grip, could not escape the influence that she had over him. And all the time she was seeking to destroy him. But in the final moments, he turned back to God. And he killed more in that last moment of his life than he had done all through his lifetime. But then there's another character that we probably, most of us probably haven't heard of. His name was Jephthah. And you'll find his story in Judges chapter 12 to the first 7 verses. And the thing is about Jephthah had everything going against him. He wasn't born in good circumstances. He was born in a terrible, terrible way. He had a terrible start in life. But Jephthah, he formed a group of men, company of men. They probably you could call them or look at them like being a group of warlords, which is posse or whatever you want to call it.
Rebels.
But it came to a point where Israel turned to Jephthah and says, "Come on, we need your help." And through him and his men, they won the battle for Israel. And we find that Jephthah made a terrible vow. Now some of you remember this part. He vowed that when I go back home, the very first thing I see of God or that meets me or greets me, I'll sacrifice. And you know what? The first person that came to greet him was his only daughter. Made a foolish vow. Right? Couldn't tell her to turn back from the vow. But do you know what? I read something because all the time when I looked at these verses, I always thought and wondered, did God accept Jephthah sacrificing his daughter? But when I read some commentary regarding these verses, and what it said is that what the daughter could not do, she could never ever marry. She ended up being a virgin that served her time separated. So this commentary that I read basically said that God would never accept the sacrifice of a human being. But he made a foolish vow. But yet in the midst of it, Paul says here is an example of a man of faith. Isn't that powerful? Isn't it powerful? He's saying to me that there's hope for me in all of my imperfections, with all of my flaws, whether it's even in my character. Even if I'm a coward or deciding to run, but in the end, if I do God's will, that God counts it towards me as faithfulness. Amen. But let's go on a little bit. In the 35th verse, it says, women received back their dead, raised to life again. It says there were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Are you listening to me? Yes. Paul is saying these are examples of faith. Some faced jeers and flogging, even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. Come on, listen. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. But here in the next verse, hear what Paul says. The world was not worthy of them. Goes on to say, they wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. And I just want to just emphasize some of these verses a little bit. Verse 35. Says that some of them, they subdued kingdoms. So in these acts of faith, we can think of individuals who subdued kingdoms. What about Joshua? What about Joshua? How yes, he crossed over Canaan into Canaan. And then all of the cities that he took. What about all the judges who were military leaders? What about individuals like David?